Brad Pryor here with Grit Branded. We are at the NCHA Snaffle Bit, and we're in our lovely podcast trailer, and we have a great visitor with us today. We're going to talk about her story. Sophia, how you doing?
Good. Glad to be here. Yeah, excited.
A lot of energy.
Yeah,
We've been talking a little bit before we started. She's got the energy for sure. So kind of give me your background. Tell me your story.
I was raised in Park City, Utah. I was on the U.S. Women's Snowboard team. When I was 14, I was one of the youngest members of the U.S. Women's Snowboard team. I competed in alpine and half pipe all the way through high school. I was interested in horses because my family had a ranch that was in northern Utah. And in Park City, as you drive right into Park City, it's called Swanner's Preservation, I believe is what they call it. My dad sold it to Nature Conservancy in 94, I believe it was. But that was all our ranch right there in Park City, just right there in Park City. So I grew up riding in the meadows and putting up hay with my family, but really I was a mountain girl. I loved snowboarding, mountain biking, you name it. I loved it.
You got that look about you. There's just snowboarders I can't pull it off, but you pull it off well. You have that look of, and even the way you talk a little bit, it's that snowboard vibe.
Yeah.
So before we get on with your story, snowboarding. I mean, how did you get into that? Just.
It's kind of interesting. When I was young, I was surrounded with a bunch of high caliber skiers that, lived up and down my street, Olympic people everywhere. So I was always really inspired by the best people around me. When I was in school, I wasn't the smartest kid, and they put me in a class that for kids that didn't read so well. And my teacher was Mrs. Holcomb. Her son ended up being a Olympian bobsledder. But we would get to go skiing on Fridays. So we had a ski day. So our whole Treasure Mountain Middle School would go skiing on Fridays. And she just purchased a snowboard. So this would have been like 1985. And they didn't have normal bindings. You just shoved your feet in the board. And we decided we were all going to try it. I tried it once and I fell in love with it. And from then on, I can remember being the only girl on the mountain. I'd go racing by somebody and they'd say, hey, that was a girl. Or, and then I decided, well, I'm fast enough. I can enter contests. And I begged my mom to buy me a snowboard that had high backs. And so the very first snowboard I got was a Carrie Kelly, black and yellow. We called it the mustard and ketchup. And I rode it and rode it and rode it until the edges fell off. And I got really good at it. And a lot of people knew me as this really young girl that could just tear it up. So it kind of inspired me to, get better. And when I was 14, I had some girls come up to me and said, hey, we see what you've been doing in the youth, you're rocking it, and we would really like you to be a part of this team. It was awesome. I was around some of the world's best. We would go to Mount Hood and train in the summers because they have a glacier. So I was doing all these things, and I was around these people that were so inspirational that just push you, from a really young age. When it was my senior year in high school, and our neighbor had horses, and I told him I'll come down, and he played polo. I'll come play stick and ball with you one day. And we were down there playing, and there was just kind of some clouds up above us, and a lightning bolt come down and hit right between me and him. And the residuals hit me and threw me off my horse. There were some roofers that were repairing his roof that watched it happen. It hit me. It looked like it lifted me straight up and then dropped me. I can just remember I can't remember anything really at first, but when I came to, it was kind of like I was in Toontown. Like everything was like kind of animated and cartoon looking, and they rushed me off in the ambulance and got me to the hospital, and it did some damage not only to my muscles, it tore muscles and so forth, but it burnt my eyes. The lightning also destroyed some of my, I don't even know how to explain it, the energy in my brain. I was having a hard time getting words to come out of my mouth for a long time. A long time. And my mom helped me. You know, I was telling you, she would put signs up like door. That's what it's called. So I could remember that's a door, or oven, or fridge. So I basically kind of had to learn how to talk again. I had a hard time walking for a long time. But my balance for snowboarding and doing the things that I did before wasn't the same. So it kind of brought my career to an end at that time. But I decided I wanted to pursue riding horses. I've always really liked that. I showed a little bit like in like the English flat classes when I was young. So my uncle who roped, his name was John Johnson, he lived in Elko, Nevada. He was really into team rope, and he had this old heel horse that had like won money at the BFI and did all this stuff, just solid as heck. And we went and bought him, and that's how I learned how to get my eye-hand coordination back, was through roping. I'd stand out there and rope the dummy and rope the dummy and rope the dummy, just trying to get everything back, you know. It was a real struggle for a bit, but I did, and I never high school rodeoed a day in my life, and I got a full ride college scholarship to Salt Lake Community College, and I went from there with pursuing my horse dream.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's a heck of a story to start off with.
Yeah.
So when you're in school, you said you weren't the best at it. Was there an inability or a disability you had, or you just didn't care about school?
You know, I was always someone that I'm more of a doer than like to sit there and think about stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's the way I learn as well. I have to watch you do it, and then I mimic that. And I mimic that a lot still, like in the cow horse. I'll watch my husband do something. I watch Kelby, who's one of our really good friends, Johnny Mitchell. I'll watch them work their horses, and then I mimic what they're doing, and I can mimic the timing that they're doing it. It's probably not right, but I can watch with a feel. Mm-hmm.
No, that's a thing.
Yeah.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, I can't read anything and have it make sense to me.
Right.
I'm dyslexic as heck.
It's funny. We just interviewed a lady before you. I have ADHD and I'm dyslexic, and it's like she has the same thing, yeah. and it's a real hard inability. You know, I'm 46 years old. When I was in school,
yeah,
they know nothing about that. They thought I was just they thought I was feral.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or I was dumb. You know, and I was probably more feral than dumb, but. I didn't like school, but the same thing. It wasn't hands-on with me at all, and I couldn't sit there and read a book. I get so frustrated. I didn't understand it. I couldn't write, and I did write or I did talk. Half time it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
You know, my brain works so fast, I can't get my mouth to catch up with it sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if I do, it's like I'm mumbling. You know, because my brain just misfiring on that or firing too fast. One or the other.
No, it's true.
You know, and it's funny that we have two people in a row that. And she talked a lot about it because she struggled with it. But horses is what got her where she could function in life.
Yep.
And it went a long way with her and teaching herself. She was talking about when she was riding, she poured 2 different color gloves where she wouldn't get mixed up on a reining pattern.
Yeah.
You know, and I can identify with that kind of stuff with things I've done. And so I feel like that's cool that people are challenged like that, but you just buck right up to it and take it on, and make it work. So coming out of school, really good at snowboarding, You're playing polo. How'd the polo part come into play?
We just did it for fun. So the gentleman that I would go play polo with, his name was Steve Wada. He was the main Playboy photographer, and he was my neighbor. When growing up, I mean, everybody was a who's who in my neighborhood. Everybody was somebody. It was crazy. But his wife was a very, very good friend of my mom, and he knew that I liked to ride horses, and we had a ranch, so she must not be scared to run at a ball and hit it with a mallet. So we'd go over there, and he'd have like a bigger ball, like a beach ball, or something a little bit smaller, and we would just play. It was fun. I got the chance one time. I went to a tournament with them, and I helped because they're switching horses so much.
Mm-hmm.
I was helping cool off horses and stuff. It was a really neat experience. But yeah, I just kind of always knew in the back of my mind that the horse industry was for me, even though I was a mountain girl and I was doing all those things. That was always something that was always super close to my heart. My dad, I was born in Elko, Nevada, and my dad had a ranch out there, so I really was supposed to be a cowgirl when I was young.
Right.
And so everybody would try, and I was, but I just always, I think it's because of, in school, I didn't really fit in that well with, the popular kids. My standout was that I could go kick your butt in any sport. You know what I mean? That was always my thing. I ice skated a little bit, and I liked it, but I really liked the snowboarding. I ski raced when I was little, just for a little time until I found snowboarding. But that's the thing that I could say, I can't read. I didn't learn to read till I was in the 5th grade, but I'll whoop your butt down the mountain.
Right.
And all the kids thought it was cool. And in our community, that was a big deal. Just like here in Texas, the horse deal. Our community in Park City, I mean, the ski racers, I mean, that was a big deal. So, yeah,
yep.
It was neat.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you talk about your dad having a place in Nevada,
mm-hmm.
and you were talking earlier that y'all have a place in Utah.
Yep.
And can you explain about y'all's ranch y'all raised up on?
Yeah. So I was born on the Glacier Ranch in just outside of Elko, Nevada. My grandfather had that for quite a while. My father was actually born in Park City. They sold the ranch up there. It was called the Mount Air Cafe. It was a big cafe. You could go fishing, eat something. They had horseback riding, the whole 9 yards. They sold it to some people, and they forfeited on, their payments, so we got it back. So we ended up leaving when I was 2, Elko, and moving back up to Park City. So that's how I ended up there in Park City. My grandfather always was into having cattle. We would have snow clear past my shoulders, and we'd have to go down and break the water on the river so the cows could drink, and feed in and everything. And it was just getting too hard to winter cattle up there. So my grandfather found a place in Snowville. It was actually the Osmonds. And he purchased that in 1983. From then, my father would buy parcels around his ranch. And he actually ended up, we had about 1,500 mama cows. And then my grandfather got into horses because my uncle worked for the Forest Service, and there was a real need for Forest Service horses, and they're foxtrotters. So he had, I'm going to say 100 brood mares and 15 studs at one time, plus all the cattle. Yeah. So it was quite the thing. We were all riding foxtrotters. But after that, my grandfather passed away in 1996. My father bought the majority of the ranch up there out from his brothers and sisters. They still have a little bit of ground up there. He kept going. He got rid of the foxtrotters. We just did cow-calf apparition, about the same amount. In 2003, my parents were killed in a car accident.
Oh, wow.
And me and Brandon ended up inheriting the Snowville Ranch. And so that's how we ended up being there. I married my husband in 1999, and we lived in Tremont. And I remember my mom and dad were like, "You just married like a starving artist. He's like a horse trainer. Like, how are you going to pay your bills?" I don't know. Somehow we'll do this. And they were not very impressed. But they learned what a hard worker he was, and how, I mean, we lived on nothing. Nothing. I look at these kids nowadays, they have, they're so far ahead of us. So far ahead of us. I mean, if we didn't do good at a show and somebody took home one horse back then, I mean, I didn't know how we were going to pay the electrical bill.
Right.
You know, it was tight. And so we ended up out there in Snowville, where we thought, you know, we're 40 minutes from the nearest town, which is Tremont, and we're about 60 miles. I thought, nobody's ever going to bring us horses out here. We're, you know. So we kept the cow-calf operation going on to kind of supplement, you know, paying bills, you know, because you don't always have horses out there. And about 2010, Brandon made his first open finals, and it changed everything for our family.
Really?
Yeah.
That was so cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you've won us you made the finals how many times?
7 times.
7 times.
Yeah, I've never not bang my head. I've never not made the finals. The only horse I never made a finals on was in the amateur in 2010, and they didn't have a finals. And that was the only one. But yeah, knock on wood. Yeah.
You got this. Any kiddos?
Yes, so when I married Brandon, he had 3 kids. In 2001, me and Brandon had a daughter named Texie, and she just barely had a baby a month ago.
Oh, congratulations, Grandma.
Thank you. Yeah, and so I'm actually a grandma to 5 babies now. Yeah.
Oh, how's that feel?
I love it.
Do you?
I love my grandbabies, my Rockland and my Tyne at home, and my Billy. I love them. They're my everything. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's a lot better than having your own kids.
Well, I haven't gotten there yet. No, not in a hurry, but I could probably relate to that someday.
Yeah.
But so y'all come to Fort Worth for a lot of shows, or just?
Yeah. So my husband was 4th at World's Greatest Horseman here at the last World's Greatest. Had the high fence score, 228. We come here. I've been here every year except for one when I didn't have a snaffle bidder. I like it. I love Fort Worth.
I do too.
I love it here. It's neat to come and watch a community support our horse industry like it does. It comes together. You know, it reminds me of Park City and our ski industry, and everybody cheers for everybody, you know.
How many shows y'all have up in your area?
Oh, we have a lot. You know, it starts in April, and we have our Utah Ring Cow Horses. We have the Idaho Club, the Montana, which is right there by us. I mean, there's a lot. Wyoming. There's a bunch. In fact, we were talking the other day, you could almost go to a horse show almost every weekend.
That's good.
Yeah, there's a lot. That's
Cool. Well, I went to the high school finals and the junior high national finals for rodeo.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm very impressed how big Utah rodeos. I didn't really realize how big a rodeo family they have.
Oh, yeah.
And how competitive and how good they are. I mean, they're giving Texas a run for their money right now.
Oh, yeah.
And I had no idea because I haven't spent much time up there, but that was pretty cool seeing that, you know, that many kids that talented in that area.
There's so many. My kids, we actually rodeoed in Idaho because of our horse showing schedule. In Utah, they go like every single weekend. And in Idaho, they have districts. And so they actually just opened it up to Utah, as the northern part of Utah, as one of the districts. But my son in 2017 won nationals, the high school finals.
That's cool.
For the cow horse. Yep.
That's
Yeah.
cool. And I like that too, that the reining cow horse and the cutting industry are injecting themselves in the high school finals now.
Oh yeah.
You know, and we had a kid that we sponsored that was in the reining cow horse, and he calf roped too. You know, he really crossed over in a lot of things, but I love seeing them supporting that.
Oh yeah,
you know?
It's huge, and you know it's crazy. You watch these kids go down the fence, and I'll tell you, I mean, they give the open guys a run for their money because they have no fear.
None.
No fear.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's awesome.
It is awesome.
It's great.
Well, good deal. So what defines your grit?
What defines my grit? You know what? I've had grit since I was born. It was just something I was born with. You know, the fear of losing, that defines me. I don't want to be a loser. I never want to be known as some wimp. That's what makes me hang in there. My family for sure, being a great influence for my kids, also my friends. I get grit from watching my friend Abby Phillips. She's one of my best friends, and I watch her just kick butt, and that fuels me too. I feel it. I get it from all sorts of places. Fuels me when I win, fuels me when I lose.
Yep.
I'm always just trying to get it. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's a lot of people that get that. Like, I feel like since the day I took my first breath, I've been fighting myself, fighting the world, but I never give up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even the days I want to, it makes it harder to even try, even think about it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the same way. I don't like to lose. I like being a product and a resource than being somebody leeching off something.
Oh yeah.
That don't make me feel good.
No.
And I raise my kids the same way, and I feel like they're there. You know, we just got to get them all the way there and get them out of my house. So.
Wait, you will not like it when they leave. I've hated it. I'm like, oh,
Really?
I can't wait till they leave, and now I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? I mean, it is so weird, but it's funny how young they keep you too, because they keep you up on all the latest things, you know, of whatever. And now that they're gone, I'm like, I go over to their house. I feel like a lifer. I'm like, so what's going on over here, you know?
Swap roles.
Yeah.
So you have correct me if I'm wrong, you and your husband share a horse?
Yeah, so the last 3 years we've shared the horse. First year, and we've made it to the open finals on 2 of them. The first year I started on dollar signs. It was a mare that I bought here through the sale. I took her home. My husband said he wasn't going to train her. He didn't want to have nothing to do with her. She's a mare, and why did you buy her, and this whole thing. So I rode her up until right before the pre-Futurity. That's in Las Vegas, so the middle of June. And he goes, you know, I told him, I says, you know, I think this horse is an open horse. And he got on her and rode her, and he agreed. So he showed her at the pre-Futurity. I believe he was third on her there at the pre-Futurity. We brought her here. I made the non-pro finals. I won the sale incentive, the chrome cash. I mean, like a ton of things. I ended up being reserve on her in the non-pro. I won the intermediate, and I won the what is it called now? Limited?
Mm-hmm.
They've changed it around. I've been in this industry for a while, and they keep changing
Tweaking
names
things.
around. Yeah. And then he made the open finals on her. I think that year we made over $100,000 on her as a 3-year-old. I come back last year. We bought a colt out of the 2-year-old sale at the Cutting Futurity. We took him home. He was a Rebel. My other one was a Hickory Holly time. His name was Rebel Force. Brandon rode him the majority of the time, and how we do it when we're sharing horses is I might ride him for a month, and then they'll take him for a month, and then I'll ride him for a month. And we switch back and forth so they kind of know us, you know. And he's such a great trainer. He can just train over my imperfections. So I have a hard time using one of my legs. I actually blew my meniscus here last year by stepping in a hole. And so my right leg doesn't work that well. So he gets them horses hooked up to a cow so good that I can fudge my way through it, and I'm so thankful for it. So we brought that horse here. I made the non-pro finals on him. He made the open finals. I think I ended up 9th on him. I had a little bit of problems in the thing, and I think he ended up, gosh, I don't even know what he ended up over in the open. But we're hoping to do it with this horse again this year, but he just lost a cow, unfortunately, in the herd, which just sucks. But but that's the whole reason why we do it, is because if one messes up, the other one can carry the other person. And he walked out of the herd. He said, Sophie, he has a big week ahead of him. There's no use for me going and trying to mark a 2-0 shit,
Yeah.
So he just walked out and handed me the reins, and that's the reason why we do it.
Right. That's cool.
So yeah.
Do you have a favorite bloodline you like?
A what?
A favorite bloodline?
I don't necessarily look at bloodlines. It's how I feel when I look at that horse. The horses that I've chose for a reason, because I had a feeling to buy them. And I know it sounds really weird, but that's how it's always been for me. I've showed horses. The first horse I ever showed was bought on accident down here at the yearling sale at the Cutting Horse Futurity. My husband bought the wrong horse for somebody. And then he went out in the parking lot and tried to sell it to everybody. And Brendan Clark, I remember, was the announcer that year. And he's like, oh, yeah, this is that horse that Brandon tried selling me in the parking lot. It was a bet he's a cat. But he ended up being he was a great horse. But, I like these rebels. I think I'm going to try to breed my dollar signs mare to the rebel. They're just built like a cow horse. I mean, they just can get it. I'm in love with them. Even like the sons of rebels, I think I really like. I really like Abby Phillips's horse. Style, I think that's a nice horse. I just think there's just so many great crosses that you can put on it. My mare, she's a little bit more, I wouldn't say downhill, but she's more kind of flatter. And so if I could put something like a One Time or a Rebel or something like that on her, I really like that. And I like a filier horse too.
Right.
The one that I made the non-pro finals on, his name's Red Lines. I named him after a song, but he's by Dual Ray.
Oh yeah.
And I never thought I'd like a Dual Ray, and I love this horse. Like, he's my second favorite horse of all time. I love this horse.
Yeah.
And I've showed 2 studs, and you wouldn't think I'd be able to get along with one, but with my bum leg, but my husband just gets him trained so good for me that I can just kind of fudge right through it. It's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you have an all-time favorite horse?
Dollar signs.
Dollar signs.
She's by Hickory Holly Time. Yeah, she by far is my favorite horse. I named her. My grandma passed away right before the sale, and she left me a little bit of money. And I come to the snaffle bit that year, and I wanted to buy a horse, and Brandon told me to buy a whole bunch of different horses other than this horse. And I come back with this horse, and he's like, oh, God. So I named her Hazel after my grandmother, and so that's what her barn name is, Hazel. And I've been offered a lot of money for her, and I almost pulled the trigger once, and I couldn't do it. And everybody's like, what the hell's wrong with me? I could not do it.
Yeah. Sometimes it's more about the things you share with the horse than more than what the value is.
100%.
It's just sometimes you just can't do it.
Yeah, you can't do it. It's not like I didn't need the money either, but it's just it was not like God. I knew that it wasn't. Yeah, I couldn't do it.
That's awesome. Well, you have a hell of a story.
Oh.
Hell of a story. And I'm very grateful to meet you. But if you had to, I want to ask you 2 questions before we wrap up. If somebody wanted to get in the reining cow horse business, even if they just wanted to show, say they want to show in reining cow horse, what information or advice would you give them about getting into the industry?
You know, the first thing I would do is make sure you go buy a good horse that can teach you. You know, that can be a great thing and a bad thing all at the same time. A lot of people get these really, really nice horses and then think that they're King Tut, like they can show you this and that, and then they get on a 3-year-old and they're like, oh, you know. But I think you need to get like that confidence, go out and get the best horse. Go out and find instruction, not just any instruction, good instruction. I think you need to look at the program that you want to enter into and see if their people are winning. To me, that's a huge deal. You know, you got to be surrounded by winners to be a winner.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to a program that they're all just a bunch of nilly-willies, that's all you're going to become. I mean, I guess you got to decide how good you want to be, but I know how I am. I want to be the best.
Sure.
You know, I think that's the biggest thing and just make sure that you have a good time. You can start doing this and you can lose track of what's really important, you know. And I think the biggest thing is have a good time, have a great team around you, enjoy yourself. It's the most important, really.
Right. Well, I would agree with that. When I rope play, I don't compete or nothing like that. 40-year-old plus ropings are my events. But when I step horseback, though, everything just shuts off.
Yeah.
You know, and no matter what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's what's always driven me to, you know, being on horseback. I love that. You know.
Yeah.
So if you had to give an advice to an 18-year-old or your 18-year-old self,
Yep.
what kind of advice would you give them?
That's a great question. You know, I really don't have any regrets because I learned from everything I've done. I think my biggest thing, I don't think I'd change a thing, you know, because everything I've ever done I've learned from and I've gotten better from it. I think just don't be so hard on yourself, you know. But I say that, and if you're not hard on yourself, then you don't prosper.
Yeah.
You know, and I see that with a lot of people, you know, like, oh, that's good enough, you know, and then they're not happy. I think the biggest thing that you got to take away from competition is it is tough mentally. But can you imagine where you would be without it? You'd be a mess.
Mm-hmm.
I would be a mess.
I would too.
I would be a mess. If I didn't have something to like mind snare myself to be over here and be thinking about, or setting goals. That's the biggest thing I tell my kids all the time. You got to have a goal. You got to be doing something. I don't care what it is, but you've got to be working better for something all the time. And that keeps you mentally okay,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I look at my life before I turned 18. There's a handful of people in the horse industry that saved me from being a bad person.
100%.
If it wouldn't been for them and it wouldn't been for horses, because I fell in love when 12 years old with horses, and or 13, whatever it was, and I was feral. I was a hellion. I was a hellion, and I hated school because all the reasons we already talked about. I didn't fit in nowhere. I want to be the best at everything I could be, but I didn't have an avenue.
Yeah.
And I moved from a big town, Mesquite, Texas, into a small rural town, Roy City, Texas. And my mom sold insurance there, and she met a rancher that kind of helped me get started, or knew people in the ranching industry, and got me in there, and it just turned everything around.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
It gives you purpose.
It did.
Like, I see so many town kids. I mean, and I'm not saying that this is how everybody is, because I don't mean that by any means. But my kids got up. Things depended on them to live. If they weren't out there to water horses, the horses would die. If, you know, my kids learned how to drive a tractor, a truck, you know, at a really young age. I had to prepare my kids because we live so far out. If mom gets hurt,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to drive mom to town or mom to the, you know, ambulance to meet them. Like, all my kids all knew how to do things. My daughter would come home. She would open up a cookbook if she was hungry and make herself something.
That's awesome.
You know, I mean, kids aren't like that nowadays. And they used to complain, you know, oh, Mom, why didn't you, you know. But my daughter can cook. She can clean. She can clean a stall. She can pull a calf. She can go feed a ton bale. She can go load a ton bale, load up a ton bale, you know, do whatever, you know, whatever we need to do. She has so many things. And same with my son. You know, he's not as good a cook at all.
Yeah.
But I mean, they can do these life skills that kids have no idea about. No idea.
No. My kids are very blessed to learn a lot of those things, and it's, you know, and what's crazy is when you're raising your kids this way, and you may have noticed this too when you're raising yours up, is their friends that come around are craving to do what they do.
Yeah.
And my kids look at it as work, and they're pissing and moaning, and I want to go do this. I want to go do what I want to do. Yeah. You know, but then you get all your friends, they start hanging around, wanting to learn what they're learning and participate in work.
Yeah.
What they call work. But these kids just won't learn. You know, and I think that's a great thing to raise your kids that way, because you're making things different.
Yeah.
For a lot of people.
And you know what's funny is out where we live, that wasn't different. You know, that was a total normal thing. And for them to go into town, I remember Texie, when they were filming, we were in that movie, Down the Fence. Texie was always wanting to go into town for like parties, like birthday parties and this and that, and go bowling. And I'm like, that's 50 miles, you know, that's an hour away. I'm not going to take you. Sorry. We got to plan this out. And she would get so mad. So, why do we have to live out here? And she thanks me now.
Yeah.
You know, it's just such a great way of life.
It is.
A great way of life. And I wasn't raised that way, but I was blessed to be able to raise my kids that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think it makes a big difference in the world we live in, having more and more of those kids being raised up that way. Yeah. But there's very few.
No, it's crazy.
It is. One thing I will say about the horse industry, you watch these kids walking around everywhere. Most of them are not looking on their phones.
Oh, no.
You know what I mean? They're going somewhere, they're carrying a rope, or they're doing, you know, probably getting in trouble somewhere. Mm-hmm. But you don't see them walking around and playing on their phones like you do all these other kids, you know, outside of our industry. You know, and I think that's a very cool thing. And we get to see a lot of it, because when you're at these horse shows, you more or less live here, so you get to see it all.
Yeah.
But I think that's a cool thing to see these kids off those phones.
It's a huge thing. My kids didn't grow up with video games or anything like that, so they didn't know how, like, that half of the world really worked. I mean, that wasn't something that, you know, they got home, they changed their clothes out of their school clothes, went out, cleaned stalls, whatever Dad needed help doing. Daxon, he learned how to count by counting cows. He's like me. You know, so it's funny, you know, these life skills that we taught him at such a young age. I mean, some adults don't even have now. It blows me away.
You know, it's crazy that, you know, we get judged a lot. Well, not a lot, but I feel like we get judged sometimes as being hillbillies or dumb. But usually those are the people that come to us asking how to do something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Looking on the outside, if they see you wearing a cowboy hat or boots, they think they automatically have a judgment because they don't know, or they're intimidated by it. But typically they're the ones that get them out of a bind, or, you know, teach them something they needed, a life skill that they should have learned a long time ago.
Yeah.
And that's why I love our Western heritage.
Oh, yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, it's funny. I did want to mention one thing. With my snowboarding, there was a photographer, and her name was Lori Adamski Peak, and I have pictures of me snowboarding. Lori Adamski Peak, 30 years later, become one of our clients, who shot Down the Fence, was the photographer, the main videographer for Down the Fence, and now shows cow horses.
That's awesome.
Isn't that weird? She was at her house, and I was pulling out pictures, and it had her stamp on it of me racing, and I said, "Look at this." She says, "I don't even remember this." Isn't that weird?
No, it's
from a resort town, here she's showing cow horses with us.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love bringing people in our industry and explaining it to them, because a lot of them really, it changes their life too.
Yep.
Because it's just a different world.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Sophia, it was great to get to hear your story and get to meet you.
It's very nice meeting you.
Sad we didn't get to meet earlier because you got a lot to talk about. But
Yeah, I don't want to bore you. Good
no,
night.
you're not boring me. You're my kind of people. So, but I appreciate you stopping by and talking to us. And good luck.
I appreciate it. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Each and every Tuesday, catch a new episode of Grit Branded as we dive into stories from all walks of life in the hopes of you discovering what your grit is.